a basic applique tutorial. I know I did a reverse applique the other day, so that's what this one ended up looking like. Just for reverse applique, where the underlayment is under this and we cut the shape out of our base material. But a lot of folks I found get a little intimidated by regular applique too. So nothing for this to be intimidated by. This is the offcuts from this same bag that we just did of the reverse applique tutorial. These are just our leftover pieces, the parts that we cut out of the bag to make the star shape on the other one. So we're going to reuse those. It's really a great way to use up leftover scraps if you're doing work like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these down with double-sided tape. This is 1/8 inch double-sided tape. I get this from Wizardry Stitches. It's really great. They also have 1/2 inch if you're doing larger stuff, but I like the 1/8 inch because I'm usually doing things smaller than this one. So here's our cutout shapes that we're reusing. So you can see they fit right in here. So this is the parts that we've already done. So I'm just reusing them. It's a really great way to get scraps out of your space and make 2 bags out of the same pieces that you would normally just throw away. So we got our stars cut out, and then I went ahead and cut out some of these from the scraps of that same rainbow vinyl. I'm working in all vinyl. The turquoise is a marine vinyl, and so is this purple, also marine vinyl. Marine vinyl is different than other ones because it's UV treated. It's designed to be outdoor seating, really, for boats. That's why it's called marine vinyl. It's very durable and it lasts a long time and it doesn't fade. A lot of people have opinions about vinyl being a cheaper product or a product that means that it's going to fall apart sooner, because a lot of what they think of is like the little plastic kids backpacks, right? And that's just not so. This stuff is very durable and I've yet to have any complaints about the materials that I use. So when we're doing applique on bags, placing the pieces correctly so that we still have room for strap connectors. This is the front panel of an Annette. That's by Swoon Pattern Groups, and I love this pattern because it has this great big open space for me to work on. That's what I'm working on right now for a commission. As you can see, this is other applique work that I do. I'm getting ready to sew this book down here in a little bit. But it has a lot of space for you to work in, and it's a nice bag that comes together easily. I really like it. That's the front panel that we're doing right now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to sew down these stars for this first layer of applique, and then we're going to put down the other ones. I am using 3.5 length on the stitches, and I'm using a rainbow variegated thread. That is also from Wizardry Stitches, because they have such great variegated threads. They have a whole bunch of colors. They're really great. So once again, we're going to put our needle down so that it stops in the down position. And we're going to sew down our stars. I like to stop and turn mine manually instead of trying to do it all in one go. It makes for sharper corners on stuff like this when you turn the piece. Honestly, I think anyone can do applique work like this. It's all just starting small or with things that are like a little bit easier to stitch than it is with doing the most complicated thing you could find first. And it's practice. It's all just practice. Nobody who does any kind of artistic work, and this is artistic work, starts out with doing the most complicated thing they can first. These are relatively simple to do because they're short, straight lines. I wouldn't recommend starting with circles, just because it's a lot more work to get a circle to lay nice and circular when we're sewing them down, because it takes a lot of turning and a lot of really short stitching to get a circle to look really cute. Because unfortunately, when you're sewing with straight lines, like I'm on a straight stitch right now, it doesn't want to turn. It doesn't want to make pretty little circles. So that takes a little bit more practice. Or a programmed embroidery machine, which I don't have. So this is how I do all of my applique work. I just do it with this little machine right here. I'm sure embroidery machines and all that are really, really, really handy. I simply don't have one. So I like to tell folks that you can do work like this. You can absolutely do work like this without really fancy equipment and investing a lot of money in a bunch of different machines. The machines just make things a little bit easier, but it's always possible to do work like this without all of the extras. I do not have an industrial machine either. When I assemble my bags, I assemble them on a Singer 1591, and it does the job just fine. That's really why I haven't invested in a industrial machine, because mine does the work just fine without that investment. So this is applique. You sew down the stars, something like this, you've done applique. It doesn't have to be work like this. This is also applique. It's just a lot more complex. And it just takes a lot more time. Also applique. These little greenery back here that we're doing, this is for like a Gothic library bag. I've been streaming that one. This is also applique. The more layers you add onto it as you go, the more complicated and complex it gets to do that. But this is also applique. It doesn't have to be super complex and super involved for you to do that. But when we start with the small stuff, we can get on to the bigger stuff later. I really believe that anyone can do this. It's just time and practice. So I've almost got these stars done. And then we'll put on a second layer just because it looks pretty. The only thing to keep in mind when you're doing layered work, like we're about to, is that the more layers you put on, the stiffer the piece will get. The more stitches you put in, the harder it is to turn the bag, and the harder it is for it to lay nicely. It kind of just tends to stick out. It gets really stiff. So that's something else to keep in mind when you do, one more stitch, when you do embroidery work, or sorry, applique work, is the amount that you can put on there and still have it maintain the actual shape of the bag. There we go. So there's all three scissors. If you want to start investing in work like this, if you want to start trying it out, I think that there's a really good basic supply list that you should have for doing applique. For me, you can use X-Acto knives, but I use a scalpel blade. This is an 11 blade scalpel. You can buy them, like the blades for, I don't know, 100 of them for like $7, which is cheaper than X-Acto blades. And it's super sharp. This is an ergonomic scalpel blade handle. They do sell these. They're really great. It's better than the scalpel blades that come with the thing. I have a pair of precision scissors from Singer that I use for cutting out the small little detail ends. These are a pair of curved thread snips. I use those for making sure that I can cut all the way flush with the piece so that we don't have little threads hanging off the front all over the place. I know there are folks who can use like the duckbill scissors. Those are fine too. I like the curved ones better. And double-sided tape. This one's important because you have to have your pieces stick down while you're working on them. Otherwise, they move all over the place and you end up with pieces sliding around. If you're doing finer details, like on this piece, like this parts, before I sew this down, I'll put a piece of double-sided tape here so it doesn't move around. The thinner the piece, the more likely it is to want to move on you when you're working on it. And then just whatever medium you prefer to work in, you should have, you know, that available and ready to cut too. You can use quilt making templates sometimes, or paper cutting dies, or just regular basic clip art like line work. So here you see we got those taped down, and now these are ready to sew, and it's going to look really pretty when we're done. So let's get this sewn. For those wondering what kind of machine I'm using to do this, this is a Juki HZL. It's a quilter. It's not really anything fancy. It's not embroidery or anything else. It will do lots of stylized stitches. But mainly it's just a regular old sewing machine. And it works really well. As you can see, it's not struggling to sew through any of this, and it could probably do about 4 more layers of this before it starts to have a problem. I don't get skip stitches or anything like that. And the same thing again for assembly. I use the Singer 1591. It was a vintage machine that I found on Craigslist for like 125 bucks, I think, something like that. It wasn't expensive at all. It's been serviced regularly. It was used by someone who was doing dressmaking a long time ago. I found some really cool stuff inside of it. I love vintage machines. They're like my favorite thing ever to use, because they just don't quit. And most of them were mass produced, so you can still find parts and supplies for most of them. Singer still makes them. And if not Singer, there's other companies that will do that too. But it's easy to maintain them, because all you have to do is really just make sure that they keep lubricated and don't push them too hard, but everything's metal, so nothing really snaps off or breaks inside them either. It works really well for me. I have nothing against industrials. I just don't particularly think they're always necessary. Now, people have different opinions on backstitching when you're doing like top stitch work like this. I always backstitch my applique. I don't particularly care if there's a little noticeable bit of extra stitching on there when I'm doing the backstitching. I would rather have it securely on there, because I am not a gentle person with my bags necessarily, and I know a lot of people aren't either. So I want to make sure that the parts stay on there. The trick to a nice clean applique, also top stitching, is to get as close as possible to the edge of whatever you've cut out. That keeps everything flat and smooth. And it's less likely that anything that you snag the bag on is going to tear up your applique work. And it's not gonna like roll up and stuff from, you know, being brushed or touched or used. So that's just getting as close as you can, getting your eyeballs focused in on the edge of the piece. I also, when I'm pulling up the foot, I check to see where I am on the corners. Oh, wait, we had a small problem. Oh, my bobbin ran out. Uh-oh. I just lost a game of bobbin chicken. That's okay. I'm just gonna grab another bobbin color because this is just the underside. When this happens, and you happen to lose a game of bobbin chicken, being able to closely examine the bottom or the top of the piece where you can see where the holes have already been perforated, you should be able to just push the new stitches through where the old ones were. It happens. I don't think it's the end of the world. And this is a nice way of showing that sometimes, even when you do this a lot, don't always not have problems. Oh, losing the game of bobbin chicken is never fun, but it's alright. I have done this enough times that I'm okay with having to go back over where I just sewed and try and match up those things so we don't have holes in there. You can see right here on the back, there's where I had to redo it. And there it is. But it looks all done and it's all pretty. And that's applique. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think stuff like this is a great place to start. When you start doing this kind of work, you can just put strips of fabric on there too. I've seen a lot of really cool abstract pieces that were just like a pattern background and stripes on the front, or whatever kind of pattern that you want, really. Like I said, you can use quilting templates to do a lot of this stuff. And I will rewind my bobbin with the correct thread once we've wound up here. But there you go. We can start with this, and we can end with these kinds of pieces, because all it is just cutting and practicing. If you wanted to see this one up close, I'm very proud of it. It's very cool. And this book is gonna, or this bag is gonna be really cool when it's finished. But I'm gonna get back to this one because this piece has to get done today too. All right, I hope you all found that helpful. See you later. Bye.